Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news coming out of Russia's Kursk region. That's because today we've heard that North Korean forces have been completely withdrawn from Kursk amidst taking extremely high losses from the Ukrainian forces. And of course, this is a very positive piece of news for the Ukrainians because the North Koreans were actually in Kursk in quite large numbers, and now they've been taken away from the fight completely and they will not be an issue at least for the short term. So that's very positive news. But also on another front, we're hearing from economists that apparently there's a tsunami of bankruptcies about to happen in Russia amidst the Russian oil companies and also the tech industry that's about to cause the Russian economy to completely crumble, maybe sooner than later. So we're hearing that as well. And also on another front, we're hearing from Zelensky that apparently the US is about to increase the aid, the military aid going to Ukraine in the near future to combat the Putin threat. And also we've gotten footage showing a major drone attack by Ukrainian forces in Russian territory overnight, attacking several different regions. But with that, we're jumping into our first article of the day, which goes to the Kyiv Post. And this is by far our biggest story of the day. The Kyiv Post tells us that North Korean troops retreat from the Kursk region after suffering heavy losses, according to Sky News, and instead of surrendering, the North Koreans are choosing to inflict damage upon themselves with grenades and poorly trained for modern warfare, and they ignore drones and artillery, launching futile assaults with up to 60 men at a time. And honestly, this is no shock right here. We've been knowing for actually over a month at least now that the North Koreans are taking insanely high losses because the Russians are putting them all in very bad positions on the front line, and they're basically using them as meat shields, and the North Koreans have been taking insanely high losses as a result of that. So this is not necessarily a shock, but also we're learning that apparently to avoid being captured, they're inflicting wounds upon themselves and also doing things to harm themselves to avoid being captured. So that's another thing we've heard as well. So the North Koreans are not faring well right now in Kursk whatsoever, and the Russians have actually withdrawn them completely from Kursk to get them away from the fighting, so that way the Russians don't trip over the North Koreans while they're trying to fight the Ukrainians as well. So right now in Kursk, it is just a melee between the North Koreans and the Russians, and the Ukrainians are basically sitting back and watching what's happening right now while the Russians and North Koreans fall apart. So a very big incident with that, and once again a big failure for the North Koreans. But jumping into our next article here, this one goes to Null Reports. And in this post right here, we get a little bit more information about what the Ukrainian soldiers think is the issue with the North Korean soldiers. And we can see here in the post that the Ukrainians are describing the North Koreans as brainwashed, and also that's no shock at all. They're definitely brainwashed by Kim Jong-un, and also that they try to erase evidence of their presence after they leave the battlefield, and they also seem to be really untrained about drones, and they really don't know what they really are, and they don't know how to dodge them either, so they're taking quite a bit of drone losses as well. So once again, it's more proof that the tactics they're using are really behind the times, and they're not even trained properly. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to the Kyiv Post. And we've got some more bad economic news coming out of Russia, because we're hearing from the Kyiv Post that a tsunami of bankruptcies is crashing down on Russia, threatening to shake the economy to its core, according to a Kremlin-linked analytical center headed by the brother of Defense Minister Belousov. And the sanctions and sky-high interest rates have pushed Putin's economy to the brink of collapse, and 1 in 5 manufacturers, coal companies, and hundreds of shopping malls, transportation firms, airlines, and IT companies face the threat of bankruptcy. So clearly, a very high number of industries facing extreme economic peril right now inside of Russia, and this is also something we've been reporting for at least a couple of weeks now actually. This is about to happen, and it could happen within a couple of months or even less time than that, because it sounds like if the Kremlin-leaked economists are saying this is the people that are trying to cook the books saying this, then it must be really, really bad right now. We're not even really sure exactly how bad it is, because of course we don't have access to that info, only Russia would know that. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to PSO1, and we get some more detail about the threat of large-scale bankruptcies within Russia. And these details are just mind-boggling, so listen to this. It says here, according to the stats, for more than 20% of manufacturing and defense industry enterprises, the burden of interest payments on profit at the end of 2024 was at a risky level exceeding 2/3 of their pre-tax profit, which is insane, by the way. That is horrific. Also, we're hearing here on another part of the stats that apparently the analysts are warning of economic surprises, and at the core of the whole issue is the tech companies within Russia. Apparently, the tech companies are at the highest risk of going bankrupt, and that's a bit of a shock to me, actually, because I thought that the oil companies would be the first to go, but it sounds like the Russian tech industry might be the first to get hit, and that could be the first casualty of the upcoming collapse. We're also hearing here that the economists expect mass bankruptcies of the companies because the economy in Russia is unbalanced, and the reason is the lack of coordination between the actions of the central bank and the government. And it sounds like the economist is trying to blame the Russian central bank for the issue, but honestly, I'm not trying to stand up for the Russian central bank, but there's really not much they can do at this point because Putin is in the driver's seat. He's running the whole war right now, and that's what's destroying the economy. So nothing the central bank can do to actually reverse that is going to fix the situation. So it's just right now, it's all the mercy of Putin, and Putin is not backing off whatsoever, and he's about to drive his whole country to the point of collapse and bankruptcy completely. So very disturbing stats right there coming from PSO1. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to the Ukrainian Review. And we have some positive news here coming out of Ukraine from Zelensky himself. He says that the U.S. may actually increase aid to Ukraine, and it's not just about weapons, it's technology, anti-Russian sanctions, and political influence. And remember, that was said by Zelensky himself. This is not a tabloid saying this. This is coming from the president of Ukraine. And Zelensky said, if half of the army goes home tomorrow, then we should have surrendered on the first day. And if half of the army goes home tomorrow, then Putin will simply eliminate most Ukrainians. So basically, Zelensky is saying right here that it's about simply surviving. It's about Ukraine's survival, and the U.S. understands that, according to Zelensky. So it sounds promising that more aid will be flown to Ukraine in the near future, and it sounds like the fears of pulling back on Ukraine aid on the United States end of things, it sounds like that was probably overblown. So at least according to Zelensky right now, it sounds like things are all good. But with that, we are now moving into our next post here, and this one goes to Military News Ukraine. And we all know that the short war video would not be complete without some videos of Ukrainian drone attacks on mainland Russia, and we have exactly that. We're delivering in this video, and it says, at night, kamikaze drones attacked the Voronezh, Tver, Oryol, Belgorod, and Kursk regions, and the Russian Ministry of Defense claims that 32 UAVs were shot down, and all the damage you saw was all from that Russian debris from the drones. So let's take a look at the videos and see what that debris looked like. Oh dear, and there you can hear the drone. And it's flying straight over their heads right now. And you really can't see it in this video right here, but you can actually see, let me go ahead and mute that, by the way. You can actually see the outline of the drone, but the camera resolution is low, and also it's low light outside, so you can barely see it. But the drone was flying right over their heads right there, and there was proof of some of the drones flying in that attacked those mainland Russian regions. But we also have one other video, so let's take a look. So right here in this video, we got some video evidence showing where the impact happened, and in a second, you're about to hear it. And there it went, a major explosion. That was one of the drones impacting on that Russian territory, and as you can see, it set off all the car alarms in the parking lot right over here, and the Russians will have to come outside and go, "Blyat, what happened out here? What happened? Not a drone attack again." They'll come outside and see that for themselves. So there you go, more evidence of the drone attack and the impacts from that pesky debris that the Russians always talk about. But with that, we are now moving into our next post here, and this one goes to War Translated. And we've gotten yet some more positive news for Ukraine, because today we've gotten confirmation that Israel has started supplying Ukraine with Soviet and Russian-made weapons captured in Lebanon, and that was confirmed by the Telegraph. And about 60% of the weapons captured by Israel during the fight against one of the proxy groups were made in the USSR and Russia. And additionally, as previously reported by an OSINT analyst, Israel is also transferring Soviet weapons captured in Syria into Ukraine. So let's take a look and see what that equipment looks like that's being sent. Is it junk or is it good? And right here, we actually have a video showing you the equipment that's being captured, and it looks like that is indeed a KAMAZ truck right there. Or some type of Russian truck, and it has a bunch of equipment in it that could be useful to, of course, the Ukrainians, because they know how to use this equipment already. That appears to be some sort of radar of some sort, maybe a mobile one, and it looks like they've captured that, and of course, they've captured that from the proxy groups and sent that back to Ukraine for them to use against the Russians. So the equipment is making a big full circle, and it's going back to fight for democracy this time, which is a good thing to see. But with that, we're moving into our next post here, and this one's going to go to Null Reports, and we're going to switch gears to move on to a piece of info coming out of Syria, because once again, Russia's having a very hard time in Syria because they're trying to get their equipment out, and so far the Syrian government would not let them dock to actually get that equipment. But unfortunately, we are hearing here from Null Reports that satellite images obtained by one of the radio companies here confirm that Russia is moving military equipment from Syria's Tartus port, and high-res photos show gear loaded onto Sparta and Sparta 2 ships, and by January the 27th, Sparta 2 had left, and while Sparta remains, now surrounded by containers. So kind of unfortunately, it looks like Russia was able to get a large portion of their equipment out, as the Syrian government did let them come back to get their stuff away from the port, and it sounds like they simply wanted the Russians to get their stuff and get out and get the Russians out of their life, kind of like a bad divorce, and it sounds like they allowed them to come back and get the toothbrush. So let's take a look at the video here and see the equipment leaving. And as you can see, there are some crates, and they are no longer. They're gone right now. And you can see there was a Sparta ship docked, and there was all them missing again from this area. And you can see there was some there, and then they went missing shortly afterwards. So unfortunately, like I said, the Russians are getting their stuff out. It's unclear exactly what the stuff is they're getting out, but it is, of course, some of their military equipment that they had left in Syria. And also they're getting their soldiers out that were remaining behind as well. But with that, we're jumping into our next article here, and this one goes to Geo Insider. And we also have you all an update on the Baltic Sea situation. Of course, another undersea data cable was cut yesterday by a vessel, and they've apparently, in Sweden, they've seized 2 of those vessels suspected of cutting the cable. And today we've heard from Swedish authorities that they've boarded the vessel suspected of damaging the cable off of Gotland, and the shipping company acknowledges its ship might be involved, but emphasizes that the damage was unintentional, and new photos show one anchor missing a fluke. So there you can see right there in the picture, there is the anchor from one of these vessels, and apparently it's missing part of it that it usually is supposed to have. So very interesting to see, but nothing really conclusive off of that right there. But moving on to our next post here, we get some more information, and this one goes to Null Reports. And we can see right here that apparently the ship that damaged the Sweden-Latvia cable is linked to China allegedly, and the Vesen vessel, officially owned by a Hong Kong company, is backed by China's state-owned ICBC Leasing, and Sweden has launched a sabotage investigation and detained the vessel. So once again, not much is known right now about the vessel, and the details really are not clear right now, but it sounds like it could be either Russian or Chinese-owned vessels doing this sabotage. And once again, it's just an allegation of sabotage right now. It's not been proven, but it looks like that's currently what the investigators are finding out, and that is what they're going to keep looking at to confirm that that is indeed true or false. But moving on to our next post, this one goes to Ocean Defender. And you all might remember that Belarus just elected their new president, the new guy, the Lukashenko. They elected him with like 87% of the vote or something crazy like that, some high percentage, which seems a little bit unbelievable. But now we've heard in a joint statement the UK, Canada, and the European Union, Australia, and New Zealand have condemned the sham election of Alexander Lukashenko in Belarus yesterday. It's pretty clear here what happened in Belarus with 87% of the vote going toward basically a dictator, which is Lukashenko. It was a sham election. That's pretty much how it is, and that's pretty much all there is to discuss about it, and that's no new secret. It's not that shocking. But with that, we're moving on to our next post here, and this one goes to Max24, and we do have a prediction here from the Times. And once again, the Times is not always on point with their predictions. Honestly, they're kind of all over the place, but on this one, I actually do agree with it. It says here in the post that the United States will not be able to create peace conditions that will suit Putin because he seeks to turn Ukraine into a satellite state, and that Putin does not need Ukraine as an independent state, and Russia's war is not aimed at capturing territories, but the goal is instead much deeper. And honestly, I do agree with this. Like I said, I don't think there will be any peace conditions that are suitable to Putin except for unconditional surrender by Ukraine, and of course that is not an option on the table. So either Putin's country is going to collapse or Ukraine's going to defeat Russia on the battlefield. That's probably the way it's going to go, but it sounds like the peace talks are really not chalking up to be very viable once again. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Disclose TV, and we're getting a very good suggestion from Poland's president Duda. He's saying that the Nord Stream gas pipeline should be dismantled so that Germany would not be tempted to restore Russian supplies. I would say that's a good idea. The European countries should stop buying Russian products because while they're out there yapping about ending the Ukraine war, they're buying Russian products and thus basically investing in keeping the war going on Russia's side. So they should dismantle that pipeline. They should get rid of it, and Europe should wake up and stop buying Russian products before they find themselves in a bad situation with Russia attacking their countries. So that is a good suggestion, and once again, the voice of reason coming from Poland. But with that, folks, we are now moving on to our last article of the day, and I think you're all going to like this one quite a bit because we heard today that the Enforcer has entered the Baltic Sea. And as you can see right here, the Enforcer, flying the Netherlands flag apparently, has entered the Baltic Sea, and they are now currently there for some unknown reason. And we actually have a GIF here showing you the Enforcer entering the Baltic Sea. And there it is. Look at that. We're entering the sea, and we're helping to protect the NATO infrastructure just like that. But anyways, folks, just a little joke there at the end of the video. Just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was pretty funny. Some ship is actually called Enforcer with a Netherlands flag on it, and they've actually gone into the Baltic. So quite interesting to see. But with that, that is actually our last post of the day. And before you go and smack the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well if you already haven't, to stay up to date with the real-time updates coming from around the world and the global conflicts. And we'll keep you up to date as long as you subscribe, and also smack the like button as well to let us know you enjoyed the video. And if you did enjoy the video, go down to the comments below and put down there Poland to let us know you enjoyed and watched the video to this point. But with that, folks, thank you all for watching. We'll see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on our next nightly warning stream. And with that, bye-bye for now.